So, hello, and welcome once again to yet another, quite frankly, humiliating Brexit bust for the Brexiteers. But before we do get into that, you may have noticed, first of all, I'm in 4K. Shock horror. And also now, as you can tell, we have a light now, which is absolutely fantastic. Like I say, I've only been able to do this because of you fantastic people who do really help support the channel. As I always say, if you do help support the channel, then I can help up stuff like this, and I've got further plans for the channel, like I say, I want to do, but I can't do obviously without your guys' support. And thank you very much to all the people who do support the channel. Like I say, this new setup I've got right now would not be possible without the help of you guys. So thank you so much for helping to support the channel. And even if you don't support with the links down below, like the Patreon page or Buy Me Coffee or the YouTube memberships, even if you just support the channel by clicking the like and share buttons, that helps so much as well. So yeah, this again has been an absolute disaster, but once again, something that we had always truly predicted what was going to happen with Brexit. It was indeed going to be an absolute disaster. And the question was just how much of a disaster Brexit was going to be. As we always said, the more of a disaster it was, the quicker we would end up back in the European Union. And of course, as we've said very much as well this week, that the whole Ukrainian crisis has caused a complete rethink and invalidating all the thinking of the Brexiteers that Brexit was such a wonderful idea. But of course, that's another thing, because you'd think if we were rebranding as Global Britain, we'd be out there trying to relaunch the Global Britain brand, but it hasn't done it at all. Instead, it has dented massively Britain's exports. So let's go diving into this article then and find out more about what's going on here. So this comes from City AM with the title of Brexit has dented Britain's exports when we should be relaunching our global brand. It's fair to say that this government is facing a myriad of challenges. Having pushed Brexit through and just about overcome the pandemic, the government is now facing war in Ukraine and a cost of living crisis at home. On top of this, the structural challenges of levelling up and boosting growth and making a success of Brexit still loom large. Work is being done on each of these areas, but one thing that flies completely under the radar, of course, is exports. SMEs employ about 16.3 million people here in the UK. And the ones that exports are at least 20% more productive, make more money, and pay higher wages than those who do not. But UK SMEs still export less than their counterparts in Europe, by as half as much as compared to Germany and Denmark, and even a third of Slovenia's efforts. Brexit and the pandemic have also compounded the problem. The last 2 years have been one of the most challenging periods on the record for UK exporters. The value and number of UK SME goods exporters are falling, and despite the brief rebound, which followed an initial massive 5.6 billion fall after the UK's departure from the single market, the government has given itself at least a £1 trillion export target. But to do this, it needs to put fiscal policy to work. An export tax credit, for example, could draw inspiration from other such successful policies, as of course the R&D tax credit, and also allow businesses to offset the expenditure in the pursuit of exports against their tax bill. It would help to de-risk the export exploration for businesses and to generate the whole new additional exporting activity, therefore doing so at minimal cost to the Treasury. The UK could, of course, take stronger leadership positions on international trade and push for WTO reform from within. This should be done with a particular focus on trying to set out new global economic agreement services, and a clear path for digital trade, both of which are critical for the importance of the UK economy. Boosting exports, of course, is not just a job for the central government. Local institutions such as mayors, universities, local authorities, and beyond have a key role in shifting this culture towards a pro-export mindset with the business community. Universities can, of course, be a particular value in sharing cultural practices from around the world, helping to bring fruitful export markets to the attention of growing businesses and supporting them in breaching this new ground. In this context of Ukraine, it seems very small fry, but the government needs to ensure that our businesses are able to launch themselves globally. It is also a useful tool to help a range of other challenges that it faces. And of course, given the important role that local institutions play in this process and a widespread nature of our SMEs, there is a very significant levelling up element to this. Exports would bring in more businesses to all regions of the UK. More broadly, the boost exporting gives to businesses would bring in much needed economic growth and with it increased wages for millions, helping to face down this cost of living crisis. But critically, these proposals are necessary to try and mitigate the damage that Brexit has done to our exports regime. Further, if done properly, there is a lot of scope here for tangible Brexit benefits. Being in control of our own trade policy opens up multiple new markets around the world, but the government must do more to encourage and help businesses to actually access them. The size of the prize is enormous, but it will be no mean feat to reach it. It will take a very concerted effort, not just from across the government and the country, to make sure that businesses have access and incentives they need to freely export. And of course, here's the thing. To be able to do this, the government actually has to invest in these policies, but it is clearly not. We've said this before about the levelling up agenda versus the global Britain agenda. They aren't compatible. If you want to be an exporting business, then guess what your closest biggest market is? It's the European one. It's the single market. And with that, that means we need to essentially follow European rules and European standards. So this idea that the article gave there of, oh, we have all these advantages, etc., etc. Not really. If you want to continue exporting into the EU, you still have to follow their rules. In fact, you have to follow any rule, any country's rules to export into them. You have to follow their rules. You've got no choice but to. When we were in the single market, of course, we had no paperwork to fill out. Hundreds of thousands of firms are basically being swamped by this amount of paperwork they now have to do. I always give the example of my friend who, again, prior to Brexit, no paperwork at all. After Brexit, it's now an extra 2 hours worth of paperwork for exports. That's 2 hours. That's a lot of business hours every day that person has to do. That's a lot of money. Those papers cost money as well. And if you do not fill in, dot the I's or cross the T's exactly, that entire export just gets rejected. So there is stuff the government could be doing if it wanted to help small SME businesses, but it's not. It is not at all. And the idea that this could be a Brexit benefit, I'd actually agree with the writer of this article, but the problem is, what exactly is he talking about by that? Now, he said, oh, of course, if he could, do all these things for helping and exporting. Treasury ain't doing that at all. They are showing no signs, absolutely no signs of that at all, because this isn't about what Brexit was really about. It was just about deregulation. And the thing is, when we start to deregulate, not only does it become more difficult to send an export to trade with places like Europe, again, our closest trading partner, and again, as we've talked about before, trade gravity, countries always trade the most with their closest neighbor. Doesn't matter that we've got this trade deal with Australia or New Zealand, or we join the TCPPP, whatever. They're on the far side of the world. It is far easier for a company to send goods over to Europe. Well, it was. It's just now far harder to do it, and it costs them more money to do so. Again, Brexit, not really the massive benefit it really turned out to be. And the more we have seen Brexiteers panicking about that, the more they know it's becoming true as well. So, as always, like I say, thank you very much for watching. And of course, please, on your way out, remember to hit that like, share, and subscribe button. And of course, down below, there are links to my Patreon page and a donation link called Buy Me Coffee, where you can, well, buy me coffee. And as always, thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you all next time.